In a Wednesday night class here years ago, a friend said, as laypersons, I think what we have to give to each other, what we have to authentically give to each other, is our experiences with Christianity. That statement really stuck with me. And today, my topic is my experiences with Christianity. We speak regularly about Christian teachings, but not nearly as often about how we respond to those teachings. In the 1980s and 1990s, I went to church only for Christmas, Easter, and other events that my children participated in. I was aware of feelings of resistance toward going. Mostly, I enjoyed the recreation and competition of playing golf in a Sunday morning golf group, or, when the weather wasn't suitable, just relaxing or catching up on reading business materials for a stressful job. Either way, I was putting all of these things ahead of God. Life wasn't bad. I was functioning in the mainstream of our earthly existence, giving all I had to worldly success and trying to be a good person. But there was always a feeling of emptiness, a sense of not being who I was created to be. I remember this moment as if it was occurring right now. On Saturday evening, before a Disciple 1 class was to begin on Sunday night, my friend Julie Clue said as I was leaving their home and almost to my car, "Jurgen is going to assist in leading a Disciple 1 class. Starts tomorrow night. I think you'd like it." At the time, it hit me as a strange thing for her to say. She had never seen me go to church. The next day, Jurgen followed up with more encouragement to attend. I came to class unregistered and unknown to leader Janet Ruckel until a couple of hours before class. I didn't even consider there might be a book needed or a registration process. I just answered the urge to go. Turns out, Janet had an extra book. In the Disciple 1 class, I discovered a whole room full of real people seeking Christ in an authentic way. We're a room full of people with flaws and concerns just like me. I didn't know until I was there that their authentic earnestness in seeking Christ was exactly what I was looking for. My classmates seemed perfectly imperfect to me. Eventually, I began to see Christ in them. I had had the blessing of growing up in church. I had answered an altar call in a Southern Baptist church way back when I was a young person. But I had fallen away from church as a young adult and didn't bother to go in my college years. My priorities shifted to myself, and they took over my life. But I still had this sense that I wasn't being who I was born to be. I have heard it described as a God-shaped hole in our hearts that only He can fill. I was experiencing some success in the world, but it was only so satisfying. Attendance at the Disciple 1 class sparked a desire for more. So when opportunities arose, like a Christian retreat called Walk to Emmaus in the fall of 1996, I was ready to go. A few months into our Disciple class, a classmate had attended this Emmaus retreat, and he came back with his face so aglow, I didn't need to hear him speak about his experiences before I knew I was open to going. Somewhere along the way, church attendance became a priority. So much so that my family, who had made a priority of church attendance for years, were a little irritated with my newfound zest for going to church. And so I was pushing them for more attendance, and I wanted to be on time. Following my Emmaus experience, my prayer became, "Thy will be done," as in the Lord's Prayer. "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." I had been afraid of those words before, becoming very aware of them as a young person and perceiving that surrendering to them could lead me to a life of service, not of my choice. For the first time, I prayed those words in earnest, and my life changed. I joined groups of men at our church who were already in service to others and study. It seemed like there were constantly service projects in motion. I studied God's Word in classes and listened to it on Word 101.5 FM, which I hadn't even been aware of prior to Emmaus. My employment changed. I worked for a very competitive organization and hadn't noticed any Christians there before, but now they were popping up everywhere. My family changed. All of my relationships improved with Christ in them. I gave up my recreation of playing golf on Sunday mornings. Opportunity after opportunity came up to speak for God, to represent Him, to serve Him, and to serve others. I had a work acquaintance call me out of the blue and say that he knew Christ was the only hope for his life, and he didn't know many Christians, and he needed help. Others were noticing that I had changed. Others around me had been accepting God's gift of an offer of a growing relationship with Christ, in many cases for a long time, but I hadn't noticed that they were. When I did, and I became different, this became the most joy-filled experience and joy-filled time in my life. What golf I played became another way to serve God and to spend time with my family. Eventually, I would experience the nudge to go to Butere, Kenya, in Africa with Ruth and Chubb. I was cowardly in response, saying that I would go, then backing out. And my plans just kept changing. I was in and I was out. The final time that I called Ruth to say that I would go, she was in prayer at that time specifically about who would go. So I attended the first preparation meeting. Ruth stopped it to have prayer that I gained more confidence in my participation. I had the idea that my business and customers couldn't survive for 3 weeks without me there. I wasn't putting enough faith in others around me and enough faith in God, that the fact that He was in control. But I did go, and it was wonderful. I never felt closer to God. In hindsight, I think it was one of the most important events in my life. While in Africa visiting a Sunday school class made up of little children, teenagers, and young kids who were doing a song about how aid kills, this little boy got up out of the audience and came and sat in my lap. Hopefully they are on the screens. This little boy wasn't interested in moving. It seemed God had just spoken to me through this little boy. He said, "If you make yourself available, I can and will use you." Why do I tell these stories? Well, one, because they are my story. But beyond that, they express so many things that our pastors and others are teaching us about. Like, a personal invitation is important. It is a form of radical hospitality. It was a gift for me to receive one. It is now a gift I try to give to others, encourage you to do as well. I believe inviting others to attend church or Christian education or a mission project or a retreat is both our opportunity and our obligation. It sometimes requires we make ourselves vulnerable to the possibility of hurts of a declined invitation. But without that risk taken, there won't be any successes. My experience is that effectiveness is increased by building friendship first and then proceeding. Following Jesus' death and resurrection, the disciples had been cowardly, confused, and displayed lots of human weakness. Jesus had asked them the question during their life, who do you say that I am? I believe Jesus asks us that same question now. And we answer Jesus with our actions or our inactions. I believe Jesus says the same things to us he said to Simon and Andrew in Mark chapter 1, verses 16 through 18. As Jesus passed along the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And Jesus said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishermen for people." And they immediately left their nets and followed him. Risk-taking mission and service are natural responses as we obey. Here at Ingomar, we have many mission opportunities, often initiated by Christians who answered God's call. Bethany House, Philippi, Clean Water for the World, Hairpiece Charities, Kenya and Honduras missions, Prayer Quilt Ministry, and Meals for the Ill, and many more. But there's also Vacation Bible School and our whole ICEC operation, and Stephen's Ministry, and ministries for the military personnel, and our rummage sale this week. One action I particularly appreciated was a member of my small group bringing over movies and books after I was laid up for a month in bed, rehabbing my knee after falling down our stairs. There's something or multiple somethings for every one of us to be plugged into. We have many individuals who have answered Jesus' call in our 175-year history here. Yet this remains a critical question for each one of us personally and individually. In the end, someone else's personally developed relationship with Jesus, or them answering his call, will do nothing for me or you. Each one of us must answer for ourselves. One danger of telling you my own story in first person is it's hard not to seem or to be prideful. Pride is a human trait that separates us from each other, and worse yet, it separates us from God. Everything we have and everything we experience is a gift from God. We spend so little time acknowledging that and thanking him in return. Jesus demonstrated his awareness of that by telling the parable of the healing of the 10 lepers, and only one coming back to say thanks. The story read today is our scripture. Part of my message today is intended to say thanks to Jesus and thanks to all of those here at Ingomar who've had any part in my Christian growth. There are many of you, some with huge direct parts, and others who I haven't had as much contact with, but the service ministries and the things you are passionate about inspire me. I encourage each of you strongly to say thanks to Jesus and thanks to each other. Our humanness needs the encouragement, the reinforcement of encouragement, and Jesus deserves our thanks more than we can ever give him. Another experience that's been meaningful in my Christian development was my father moving into my home as he approached age 90. I didn't know if he would be able to make it up our stairs, and we had no main floor bedrooms. But it was my turn. I was surprised by the things I learned from him after he was 90 years old. Of course, he moved slowly, and trips to the store took longer. But he demonstrated such a gracious spirit. He was so calm and peaceful, a real pleasure to be around. His spirit was something for all of us to emulate at any age, but it especially showed me how I hope to age. We used to have discussions about how everybody he knew growing up had passed on, and he did not understand why he remained. I told him God still has tasks for you to complete, tasks only you can do. Meanwhile, he would say, I'm not sure I know what those are. And I would think, you're doing at least one of them right now with your spirit and presence and example you set to me and to others. My father used to enjoy participating in our small group. Often, I would hear him referred to as Pops. I was never sure how much of our discussions he heard, but he sure enjoyed it. On a sidebar, he also enjoyed going for a ride in my Volvo convertible with the top down. I would have never imagined that. Please don't be deceived into thinking these events mean that I am sheltered in any way from the world or Satan. It is far from it. My desire to be successful in the world as long as I am in it, that desire alone is enough to knock me off track. I become distracted. I perceive Satan works overtime against me. I attempt to respond to the lessons inside our church walls by taking them to our world Monday through Saturday. I meet a lot of people, especially through our business. I take time and put extra effort into getting to know them. I pray for and sometimes with persons experiencing trouble. I try to see people as Jesus might see them. Members of our staff pray for each other and the people that we serve. Ministry activities get high priority, and employment schedules are flexible to accommodate them. My experience is that our workplaces change a great deal when we take a Christian presence and prayer into them. One thing I notice in myself is that when I get down or sad, I have lapsed into thinking more about me and less about others. My thoughts returning to others will usually lift me out of that. Another thing I experienced in Kenya that surprised me is that some Kenyans were serving as missionaries to other parts of Kenya. Many Kenyans expressed such a thankful spirit despite their economic conditions. This gave me pause to think about our wealth and our spiritual health. Our economic conditions here are better, but in the end, those will fall away, and only our spiritual condition will go with us into eternity. I think, and I gathered in conversation with the Kenyans, that they were of the opinion that we could benefit from missionaries here in our community. And I think they're right, and I agree with them. And I think we are those missionaries for the communities around Ingomar. On our church website, our homepage, on the church home site, in our homepage and our website, the words appear. Hopefully they're on the screen. Our hope is to make life better by assisting people in a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. For our internal discussion, I believe the words "our hope" should be replaced with the words "our plan." Our plan is to make life better by assisting people in a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. I believe this is a mandate given to us by Jesus, each one of us individually and us collectively as a church body. I challenge us to consider these words and how we can be more purposeful in bringing them to reality. Ingomar is a church with a rich 175-year history and many faith development opportunities here. I perceive that we get used to these opportunities and we don't value them as highly as they deserve. Occasionally, we even allow ourselves to lapse into focusing on minor issues or complaints. But the world needs what Ingomar Church has to give and what all churches have to give. I have heard it say that Christianity grew so quickly following Jesus' death against all odds because the Christian community itself was so giving. And that giving nature of the Christian community attracted individuals to that community, and then often they learn more about Jesus. I encourage us to become more like that early Christian community. I would like to close by replaying the words from a video that was played earlier this year that Jim Mountain did concerning our 175th anniversary. Please hear Jim's words of advice.
Jim, you've been a vital member of this congregation over the years. What have been the highlights of your ministry service?
Philippi. If you gave me 2 weeks each summer, one was Philippi and one was spend as much money as you want, go anywhere you want, and have it be your goal of that second week to have as much fun as you possibly can, I think that I would still have more fun in that Philippi week than the other one.
So tell me about your journey of faith throughout those years.
Well, my journey of faith, I think, pivots around one event that happened to me in this church, and that is when Jan and I attended the disciple Bible classes together about 20 years ago. I would say that my whole journey was different before that event and after that event. The reading and studying the Bible changed my life. It changed my whole outlook, and it's really been, my life has been different since then.
What words of encouragement could you offer to our newest members about becoming more involved in our church?
I would say that Jesus' promises are true. I have surrounded myself with people who are kind of living out those promises, people that have surrendered themselves in some way to God. They get something back for that. There's a reward, just like in Christian service, there's a reward. Jesus said, those who would save their lives will lose it, but those who would lose their lives for my sake will find it. And I see people all over this church that really are kind of living that out and are living evidence that that's true. And I would also say that if you're asked to join somebody in Christian service or Christian ministry, to say yes. Because if I look back on my time here at Ingomar Church, many of the most significant things that happened to me happened because somebody asked me to join them in ministry, and I said yes.
I would recommend and echo Jim's answer to say yes to the opportunities that Ingomar Church provides. Develop your own growing relationship with Christ, so in turn you can assist another in doing so.